When you heard an argument, when you heard a car screech, when you heard something, any type of sound, you knew to duck or move. So when I'm in the store, I'm putting the skills in my thing. He's right there by the Chinese owner. He's paying for the milk. I hear a screech. And all I'm hearing is cussing. I hear somebody saying some set. I duck down, and like glass breaking, I'm saying bullets flying everywhere. I look back. As soon as the car drives away and the Chinese dude's all screaming, he's going crazy, I look back, Walter's on the floor. The milk's still on the counter, but it has like a gun bullet hole through it, so it's like everything's spilling everywhere. And I'm looking at Walter, and he's dying on the floor. At that point, I didn't know, like, I didn't put it in my head that, oh, this is like he's dying. I put it in my head as if, oh, he's hurt. So I go up to him, and he has a bullet hole right here on his neck, and he has 2 in the chest. I'm in shock. I'm looking at him. I don't know what to say. The Chinese dude's screaming at me, telling me to get out, go home. And I'm like, I didn't want to just go home and just run away from Walter. I'm sitting there looking at him like, yo, what's going on? I'm trying to picture him. I just couldn't put it together that he's dying right in front of me. So the first thing I do, I listen to the Chinese dude. I get up, I run home. I'm crying my eyes out, snot coming down. I look like a mess. All you see is everybody from the hood going towards the store. I'm running home before my mom gets home. And I want to take off this clothes that has blood on it. I want to put it in the bag, throw it away. I get in the house, I sit down. I still got the Skittles in my pocket. I'm in my room, and I'm just breathing heavy, not knowing what the hell to do. His mom, like, I want to say 20 minutes later, I hear her coming out of the building. She's crying, she's screaming. She tried to come to me. I did not answer that door. I stayed in my room. I just didn't want to be a part of it. The police later on came to me. And they asked me, who did I saw? Like, did I see anything? I told them, no, I didn't see nothing. One of my friends that I used to be close with, James Moore, we were just best friends because we had the same name. But his brother was actually the shooter. And his brother got caught. So they thought, James, knowing that I was there with Walter, because I told him, people asked me, did I see it and everything? I told him, yeah, I was with him. The next day, I went to sleep at like 6 that first day, didn't wake up till the next morning, went to school. Everybody asking what happened, did you see it? I was like, yeah, I was with him. James Moore hears that I'm with him, and remember, we're just 10 years old, 10, 11. He's already thinking, oh, I'm gonna get him. So I'm thinking we're gonna throw their hands. And I was like, all right, it's whatever. The next morning I come back to school, I'm being rushed by 15 dudes. I'm being stumped on the ground early in the morning on school campus. I knocked out by the time I don't know what hit. Like, I thought it felt like a rock. It's like somebody just cracked me in the skull with it. I wake up in the hospital. My mom's there, the police is there, the school is there and everything. They're telling me, yo, do I want to sue and everything? I was just like, when I heard the word sue, I just thought of money. I was like, isn't that equal money? So I was like, I was just like, yeah. But my mom already answered for me. They just asked me to ask me, so I was like, it's whatever. I didn't remember much. All I remembered was, the only thing I could think about was Walter. And later on, all I heard in the hood, everybody was like, oh, you heard about what happened to that kid? And like, yeah, that was crazy and everything. They're just like, oh, if that was me, the guy would have caught a hot one. Back then, again, at this time I was around I was just about to turn 11. I'm thinking a hot one means just throwing hands some more. I didn't think it was guns, because guns didn't come to me. Like, I wasn't thinking about guns. To this day, I still don't think about guns that way. After hearing something like that, it made me want to do something more. Like, it was like, oh, what if I could do something for Walter? Like, what if I could retaliate for Walter? And that's the one word that I want to put in y'all heads today is retaliation. That's what moves teenagers like me, who goes through stuff like me, who's seen the things like me. That's the one word that pops in their head. Like, oh, you killed someone that's close to me. I'm about to kill you and anybody that's close to you. And what I want everybody to take away from this, from what I just said, is that you need to reach these kids, these teenagers, before the fact that this, like, get them while they're still like that. Take them somewhere that, give them some positive vibes, basically. Like, don't always think that, oh, because from what I've seen is, whenever somebody tries to go save somebody who's been through something, they're already on the process of getting healed. And that's facts. I've never seen someone who something just happened to them getting help. I've never seen it. And I want to see something like that. I want to see somebody go up to that person and be like, yo, you good? You talking to me and stuff like that. But it can't be someone who's, in my version, I say a person in a suit. It can't be someone like that. It has to be somebody who's been through it. So like someone like me, a teenager going to another person saying, yo, I feel you, I'm there for you, hugging them, holding them, telling them that everything's all right, that there's a brighter way to go through this. And that's the only thing I wanted y'all to know about my story, to take away from my story. Hopefully y'all can apply it and save the other me's out there. Save the ones that don't know how to be saved. Mm.
Lastly, from discussion from the panel, we're going to have Lena Rojas. Her example of trauma is non-homicide. But I do want to say this, the experience that James just explained actually happens 1 million times a year in America. That exact experience. So we get dramatic about the homicides, but the non-fatal shootings, if any one of us here got a non-fatal shooting, there would be a whole lot of people impacted by the trauma, and you would be impacted, especially if you had loss of body function. So 1 million times a year, multiple people have that experience that he just mentioned. Maybe 13,000 to 23,000 homicides. And currently, since Sandy Hook, we have 70,000, probably 74,000 homicides since Sandy Hook. Just to give you the sense of how often this is happening and how many of those people who need services are somewhere in the dark. Who has a mental health system that could serve 5,000 people in 1 year in one city? So we have Lena, a non-violent trauma, and also has had some experience looking at another version of the teen impact.
Hi. Okay, let's just jump into it. When I was 14, I was living in Grove Hall on Leslie Street, and we were cleaning the house. Weekends, you clean the house. I was walking down the hallway, and I heard a loud thump, I guess, and a few seconds later, a U-Haul truck drove into my dining room. My mom's husband at the time was sitting at the dining room table, and he got hit. So the truck drove in, the wall went straight up to the ceiling, pushed the table, pushed him against the wall. So he was covered in a lot of debris. During the weekend, we went to a hotel, and I thought I was doing it on purpose, but I kept replaying the incident over and over again because I watched the truck come into the dining room. Like, I remember my mom was freaking out, my sister was in her room. And I just remember feeling not numb, but just blank. Like there's nothing you could really do when you see a truck drive into your dining room. And the symptoms that I was getting was a lot of flashbacks, and I couldn't sleep for at least 2 weeks. When we got back to the house 4 days later, it was really hard to just be in the house. Every loud sound that we heard, I would freak out a little bit. I was like, is there another truck coming in? And my mom's husband came back from the hospital. He got hurt. He dislodged 3 discs in his back. So they provided him with medication. But as time went on, my mom and my sister then suffered from emotional trauma, only because my mother's husband at the time was clean 8 or more years of drugs. So he was taking the medication he needed to take that then started to cause nightmares of his childhood trauma that he never got help for, which then escalated to committing him, and then he was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. So now we were dealing with someone who was hallucinating, and we didn't understand what was going on. Once we got that help, even more medication came into the picture. And then later on, while diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia, he relapsed first onto alcohol, and then he was using again. Using all of our medication, plus his medication, plus whatever he found on the street. And that tore us up completely. Like, we didn't know how to come back from that. We were trying to help somebody. My mom didn't want to just ditch him. We wanted to provide for him. They were married at the time, so we had to act as a family. But after it got way too intense, all the hallucinations, it just became unsafe for us 3 to live with him. While that was going on, and right after the impact, I received intervention. We all did house visits a lot. And it helped. After a while, I was a person who suffered from a lot of anxiety, and the help that I received, I took it, But I was also paying attention to what kind of help I was receiving. You know, I was being told, you know, you should drink water before you go to bed. You should take at least 2 showers a day. You should hang out with the people who love you and who you love. And as I'm getting help, I'm just like retaining all this information. It's just like, okay. So then a few years later, now I'm 17, we were on Julian Street in Dudley, and there was a party. And wrong people from the wrong neighborhood came, everyone left the apartment, and there ended up being a stabbing outside. The guy got sliced in the neck. I ran outside with my god sister, and the guy was like holding his wound down, and everyone was going crazy. 3 minutes later, there was at least 5 gunshots on Blue Hill. This is Julian Street and Blue Hills right here, so we heard it loud and clear. We get back to the apartment, and there's a lot of like rowdy people upstairs. I'm trying to figure out, like, should I stay down here? Do I go upstairs? So I went upstairs, and I go into a room, and magically there's like a whole case of water and tissues. And I was just like, okay, so maybe I do need to be doing something for these people. So I grabbed as many bottles of water I can. There's this one guy, the first guy I walked up to, 2 of his friends. I mean, you see Royal, the guy was probably like taller than him, but like really big. His friends were holding him back. And so they're all yelling at each other like, I'm gonna go downstairs, you're not gonna go downstairs, you're gonna stay up here. No, but I need to leave. And I got in his face, and I asked him, I was like, is it okay if I talk to you for 2 seconds? Just give me like 2 seconds to talk to you. I was like, stop yelling at each other, give me like, just let me talk to you for like 1 minute. And I asked him, I was like, if I give you water, do you think you can drink some of it? And he took the water, so I took it as a yes. And I was like, okay, try 1 sip. And then he just started drinking a whole bunch of water. And I was like, okay, is it okay if we sit down on the floor? We sat down on the floor, and he's hyperventilating. He's hot. It's really hot. He was going crazy. He was wilding out. And I asked him, and I was just like, do you think we could take breaths together? If you could take 3 seconds in, 4 seconds out. If we work on our breathing, because if I can get you to calm down, I can get the rest of the people in the house to calm down. It took me 15 minutes to stabilize him, and then once he was fine, I asked him, I was like, do you still need me here with you? And he said no, and I was like, is it okay if I come back to you later? I have to go check up on everyone else in the house. There was at least 15 people in the house, plus a mother who was holding an 8-month-old, crying, the incident hit her hard. So pretty much individually, I went up to everyone, and I tried to stabilize them. When I got to the mom, I was trying to talk to her, but she was wailing with her child. And in the room, there's at least 7 other teenagers who, some of them were friends of mine who worked at nonprofit organizations, doing nothing but looking out the window, eating Chinese food. And it was just me trying to like talk to everybody individually to try to stabilize them. So I got really frustrated with that. But once the whole house, it took me at least an hour and a half to stabilize everybody. And then the cops came. When I approached the cops, I tried to tell them, I was just like, I just got everybody to calm down. So try to be mindful in how you approach these people. And I left, and none of that splashed onto me. But then a few months later, the person whose party it was, he Facebook messaged me, and he was just like, I really appreciate what you did for me. I was like, what do you mean? What did I do? Why are you thanking me? He was just like, not a lot of people did what you did the night that everybody was wilding out. Mm-hmm. And then a few weeks later, I saw him on the street. I didn't recognize him, and he was like, hey, you were at my party, right? I was like, yeah, and he like hugged me, and he was just like, thank you so much. So the help I received from a U-Haul truck driving into my dining room and having to see someone relapse, the help I received, I managed to give that back. And the only reason why I feel like it was easy for me to give it back is because I know what it is to have a freak out moment, to have a breakdown, to like actually sit there and like feel all this kind of emotion go through the body. And I know water calms it down. I know that if you fix your breathing, you can slow down your heart rate, and then you can like bring your body back to the balance that it needs to be. And someone said earlier, what did he say? Awkward. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for like what's happened to me, or like it wouldn't have put me on that path. And I would never think that now I can, I'm able to provide that for people who are in need for that kind of service. So, yeah.
How many of you in this room actually believe that if somebody were having what they actually technically call acute stress disorder, I saw something and it's freaking me out, that you could do something with water and it would slow it down and smooth out? Do you believe that? I've been doing that since I was 12 when I was in Jamaica. But now there's a study that shows it works. It shows its work. If you study a mammalian dive response, it shows you how you can regulate someone's breathing and reduce heart rate very quickly just by using water put on somebody's body. I want to do a process thing. We have adjusted the schedule because we wanted time for people to actually interact with one another. We didn't want it to be a panel where there would be 5 questions and then people on stage. But because we had to adjust the schedule, we're taking out the section where people would really interact. That really means to make sure we catch everyone's voice, that if something comes across your mind, a question you had, a statement you want to make, I hope we can figure out a way to get paper out, because we have to make this thing kind of interactive. Secondly, I want to say is, so what good is a conference in America? On any day in America, so what? We got 300 people together and we impressed them from a stage. I did my little shindig and I danced and I spun on my head and then I said something deep about trauma, and then literally at 4:30 we're going to leave. And what's going to be different? We have been trying to figure out a way to make this conference different. What that actually means, we have to stay connected somehow. So before we leave, there's going to be someone asking, would you like to continue a dialogue like this? Because there are many other brains in this room, not just these people we put on stage. So we have to figure out how to do this. We have to create a movement that's going to address this issue. I don't mean our jobs. I don't mean our job descriptions. I mean, we as people of color, this is a survival of the race issue. I'm just going to leave on this note. I was taught half of what I know by the Lakota tribe. And a brother in this room and I went to the Lakota reservation in South Dakota. I was there with a lot of folks, including folks from the Nation of Islam. What we left saying was that we saw extinction in process. The average age of a man was 48 years of age, and a third of every room we were in, someone had either tried to commit suicide or lost someone. While we were there over the weekend, 6 people committed suicide. But isn't that the same with homicide for us? And that's a bloodline level issue. So this is a movement thing. Like, we don't figure this out, next year or 2 years from now, we'll be looking at some other outcome and going, wow, how is that happening? It's like the murder rate going up or down, and the number of people have this kind of exposure. So since this is some of these people's first time being on stage, can I ask you also to stand up and give them a round of applause, just so we can get you breathing a certain way? And then also, can you, if you follow my hand, can you breathe in for 2 seconds and then breathe out for 4 seconds? This shifts the way adrenaline and serotonin run around in your body and breaks down adrenal cortisol, because we did hear some stories here. We cannot let's just throw you out into the world with that on. So we just follow my hand. We're going to breathe in for 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 1. Breathe out. Full lung evacuation. Get all the air out of your lungs. Whoever invented humans invented breathing for a reason. In. Then out. We got to take a deeper breath this time. Breathe in. Go in. Breathe out really slowly and sit down. And we're going to the next part of the agenda. Thanks.